On a green and windy plain in the south of England, there is a circle of stones. Stones so large that the smallest weighs more than 3 tons, and the largest more than 50. Stones that were placed there more than 4,000 years ago by people who had no wheels, no metals, and no technology that we could call advanced. Stones that were brought from quarries more than 300 kilometers away, crossing mountains, rivers, and open sea. And still today, after centuries of research, no one knows for certain why. We do not know who placed them there. We do not know how they transported them. We do not know what purpose they served. We only know that someone, 4,000 years ago, considered it worth the extraordinary effort of building this place, and that this place, after all that time, is still standing, silent, mysterious, eternal. Tonight, we are going to try to uncover its secrets. Breathe deeply, relax, and come with me to the oldest mystery in Europe. Close your eyes. Imagine you are standing on an open plain in the south of England. It is before dawn. The sky is still dark, but on the horizon, a line of golden light is slowly beginning to appear. The wind blows gently over the grass. Around you, the Salisbury Plain stretches in every direction, flat, vast, silent, and in front of you, there is a circle of stone giants, enormous gray monoliths rising toward the still dark sky. Some standing alone, others connected at the top by large horizontal stones, forming structures that look like doorways, or frames, or thresholds into another world. This is Stonehenge, one of the most mysterious, most studied, and most debated places in the world. A place that has fascinated humanity for millennia. A place that the Celts considered sacred, that the Romans gazed upon in wonder, that medieval people attributed to Merlin the wizard, that modern scientists continue to study with cutting-edge technology without reaching definitive conclusions. A place that after all this time still keeps its secrets. Tonight, we will explore each of those secrets together, calmly, in detail, without rush, because Stonehenge is a mystery that deserves all the time in the world. So relax completely. Let your body sink gently. Let your breathing become slow and deep. There is no rush tonight. There is only silence, cold wind from the English plain, and the distant echo of a civilization that existed 4,000 years ago and still has things to tell us. To understand Stonehenge, we must first understand the place where it stands. Stonehenge is located on Salisbury Plain, in the county of Wiltshire, in the south of England, about 130 kilometers southwest of London. It is an open and relatively flat plain, covered in green grass, with a sky that seems larger than anywhere else. A landscape that at certain times of day, especially at dawn or dusk, has an almost supernatural quality, as if the sky and the earth were closer here than anywhere else. And in the center of that plain, there is a circle of stones. But Stonehenge is not just the stones everyone knows. It is actually a monumental complex, far larger and far older than most people imagine. It all began approximately 5,000 years ago. At that time, the place where Stonehenge stands today was already a special site, a place where people gathered for reasons we still do not completely understand. The first phase of construction did not involve large stones. It was simply a circular ditch, a kind of enclosure with an earthen bank. Archaeologists have dated this first phase to around the year 3000 BC. Inside that enclosure, there were holes arranged in a circular pattern. Archaeologists call them the Aubrey holes, in honor of the antiquarian John Aubrey, who discovered them in the 17th century. Some of those holes contained cremated human remains. This tells us something important. From the very beginning, Stonehenge was associated with death, with the ancestors, with the world of those who are no longer here. Over the following centuries, the site was gradually transformed. Around the year 2500 BC, the most ambitious and mysterious phase of construction began. Someone, at some point, made the decision to transport enormous stones from very distant places and erect them in a specific and deliberate pattern on Salisbury Plain. That decision, and the way it was executed, is what makes Stonehenge one of the most fascinating mysteries in the world. Because the stones of Stonehenge do not come from one single place. There are two main types of stones at Stonehenge. The largest, called sarsen, are siliceous sandstone. They can weigh up to 50 tons, and the nearest source of this type of stone is in Marlborough Downs, about 25 kilometers to the north. 25 kilometers does not sound like much, but when you are moving blocks of 50 tons, without wheels, without machinery, every kilometer becomes an extraordinary challenge. And then there are the smaller stones, called bluestones. The bluestones are smaller, weighing between 2 and 5 tons, but their story is far more extraordinary because they come from the Preseli Hills in southwest Wales, more than 250 kilometers away. 250 kilometers of rugged terrain, with rivers, with hills, with marshy areas, and with a stretch of sea that must be crossed. Why did someone 4,000 years ago decide to transport stones from so far away, when there were perfectly usable stones much closer? That question is one of the great mysteries of Stonehenge, and it still has no definitive answer. The question of how Stonehenge was built has occupied archaeologists and engineers for centuries, and what we have learned is at the same time fascinating and humbling. Fascinating because the engineering involved is extraordinarily sophisticated for its time. Humbling because still today, with all our modern technology, we do not have a completely satisfying answer. Let us start with the smaller stones, the bluestones, and the mystery of how they arrived from Wales. For decades, archaeologists assumed that the bluestones were transported entirely by human beings, using wooden sledges, rollers, rafts, and extraordinary logistical organization. Modern experiments have shown this is possible. Groups of people using Stone Age technology have managed to move replicas of stones of that size, though with enormous effort. But in recent years, an alternative theory has gained strength. Some geologists propose that the blue stones were not transported entirely by humans, that the glaciers of the last ice age, which covered much of Britain between 10,000 and 20,000 years ago, may have moved these stones from Wales, depositing them much closer to Salisbury Plain, and that the builders of Stonehenge simply collected the stones that the glaciers had left behind and carried them the rest of the way. This theory would significantly reduce the distance humans had to transport the stones, but it does not eliminate the extraordinary challenge, because the greater challenge is the sarsen stones. The sarsens are enormous. The largest weigh between 25 and 50 tons, and they had to be transported about 25 kilometers from Marlborough Downs. Archaeologists have calculated that moving a single sarsen stone using the technology available 4,000 years ago required the coordinated work of hundreds of people over days or weeks. But the most impressive thing is not transporting them. It is what was done with them once they arrived. The sarsen stones of Stonehenge were worked with extraordinary precision. They were shaped so that they fit perfectly together. The horizontal stones that rest on top of the vertical monoliths, called lintels, have a joining system called mortise and tenon. Exactly the same system that carpenters use to join wood, but applied to stones weighing several tons. This level of precision in stonework 4,000 years ago is extraordinary. And there is something more. The lintels are not simply flat stones placed on top of two pillars. They are slightly curved. They were specifically shaped to follow the curvature of the circle, so that when they were all in place, they would form a perfect arc around the complete circle. Someone 4,000 years ago designed that detail, planned it, and executed it with a precision that still astonishes us today. Who had that level of architectural and mathematical knowledge at that time? Where did that knowledge come from? Those questions remain unanswered. One of the most extraordinary things archaeologists have discovered about Stonehenge is its relationship with the sky. Stonehenge is not just a circle of stones. It is an astronomical observatory of extraordinary precision. The most famous discovery is the alignment with the summer solstice. If you are standing in the center of Stonehenge, on the morning of the summer solstice, June 21st, the sun rises exactly above a specific stone that stands outside the main circle. It is called the heel stone, and the sun rises exactly, precisely, perfectly above that stone. Not approximately, not almost, exactly. That is not a coincidence. That is intentional and deliberate design. Someone 4,000 years ago calculated with sufficient precision the position of the sun on the summer solstice and built a monument of 50-ton stones perfectly aligned with that astronomical event. But the summer solstice is not the only alignment. The winter solstice, December 21st, is also marked. The sun sets exactly between two of the largest stones in the circle, at the point exactly opposite the summer sunrise. Archaeologists have also identified alignments with the moon, with the positions of certain planets, and with astronomical events that occur in cycles of 18 years. What this suggests is that the builders of Stonehenge had an extraordinarily sophisticated astronomical knowledge for their time. They knew the movements of the sun and moon with a precision we would not expect from a Stone Age civilization. How did they acquire that knowledge? How long did it take to develop? And for what exactly were they using that astronomical knowledge? The theories are fascinating. Some archaeologists believe Stonehenge was primarily a calendar, an astronomical marker that helped the community know when to plant, when to harvest, when to celebrate. Others believe it was a sacred place for celebrating the solstices, bringing communities from across the region together for collective ceremonies. And others believe the astronomical purpose was deeply connected to its function as a place of the dead, that the cycles of the sun and moon, the death of the sun at the winter solstice, and its rebirth at the summer one, were metaphors for the cycle of life and death celebrated at this place. From the very beginning of its history, Stonehenge was associated with death. The oldest holes at the site contain cremated human remains. And as the monument grew and evolved over centuries, that association with the dead remained and deepened. Archaeologists have found the cremated remains of at least 63 people at Stonehenge. Some date back to the earliest phases of construction, 5,000 years ago. Others are more recent. These were not ordinary people. Analysis of the remains suggests they were individuals of high social status, possibly leaders, possibly priests or shamans, possibly people the community considered special or sacred, and they came from far away. Isotopic analysis, which can determine where a person was from based on the chemical composition of their bones, shows that some of the people buried at Stonehenge were not local. They had traveled from other parts of Britain, and perhaps from even further, to be buried in this sacred place. Which tells us something important. Stonehenge was not just an important place for the local community. It was a sacred place of regional, or perhaps even continental, importance. A place that people traveled to from far away, in life and in death. Around Stonehenge, within a radius of several kilometers, archaeologists have found hundreds of burial mounds, earthen mounds beneath which the dead of thousands of years ago are buried. It is as if Stonehenge were the center of a city of the dead, a place where the boundary between the world of the living and the world of the ancestors was thinner than anywhere else. Why this specific place? What was it about Salisbury Plain that made it special, sacred, different? No one knows for certain. But there is something about this place, something that is difficult to describe in words, that makes even modern visitors feel that there is something special here, something that goes beyond the stones, something that time has not been able to completely erase. As with all the great mysteries of the ancient world, Stonehenge has inspired theories that go far beyond conventional archaeology. Theories that have captured popular imagination for centuries. The first, and perhaps the oldest, is the legend of Merlin. During the Middle Ages, the most popular explanation for the origin of Stonehenge was simple and direct. Merlin built it. The wizard of King Arthur's court, according to legend, used his magic to transport the stones from Ireland, where they formed a circle called the Giant's Dance, and relocated them on Salisbury Plain in a single night. It is a beautiful story, and although modern archaeology has shown that Stonehenge is thousands of years older than the legendary King Arthur, the association between Stonehenge and Arthurian magic remains part of popular imagination. The second alternative theory involves the Druids. For centuries, it was assumed that Stonehenge had been built by the Druids, the Celtic priests who inhabited Britain before the Roman conquest. Today we know this is chronologically incorrect. Stonehenge was built at least 2,000 years before the Celts and their Druids arrived in Britain. But the association persisted, and still today, on the summer solstice, groups of modern Druids celebrate ceremonies at Stonehenge, connecting with a tradition they consider their own. The third alternative theory is the extraterrestrial one. As with the Nazca Lines, the Moai of Easter Island, and the pyramids of Egypt, there are those who believe that the scale and precision of Stonehenge can only be explained with the help of extraterrestrial technology. Modern archaeology has repeatedly demonstrated that Bronze Age humans could build Stonehenge with the technology they had. Experiments have confirmed it, but the theory remains popular because there is something about the scale of the achievement, something that seems to defy the logic of what a society without writing and without metal could have accomplished. And perhaps that very thing, that disbelief we feel, is the greatest tribute we can pay to the builders of Stonehenge. Despite centuries of study, Stonehenge still keeps fundamental secrets. The first is who exactly its builders were. We know they lived in the early Bronze Age. We know they had a sophisticated social organization, capable of coordinating massive construction projects. We know they had extraordinary astronomical knowledge. But we do not know what they were called. We do not know what language they spoke. We do not know exactly what they believed. We do not know how they organized their society. They are completely anonymous to us. The second secret is the complete purpose of the place. We know it was associated with death and the ancestors. We know it marked the solstices. We know it was a place of collective gathering. But We do not know exactly what rituals were performed here. We do not know what words were spoken. We do not know what music played, if any played at all. All of that was lost with the builders. And the third secret is why it was abandoned. At some point, around the year 1500 BC, construction at Stonehenge stopped, and the place was gradually abandoned as an active center of religious or ceremonial activity. Why? What changed? Did the religion change? Did the climate change? Did a new population arrive with different beliefs? No one knows. Stonehenge was abandoned, in mystery, just as it was built. There is something deeply moving about Stonehenge. It is not just the scale of the achievement. It is not just the mystery of how it was built. It is the persistence. Those stones have been standing for 4,000 years. They have watched entire civilizations pass. They have survived invasions, wars, climate changes, and the relentless passage of time. And they are still there, silent, patient, eternal, as if they had something to say, and were waiting for someone to finally take the time to listen. Perhaps what they tell us is something simple, that human beings, in every era and in every place, have felt the need to create something greater than themselves, something that lasts, something that matters, something that connects the past with the future. Stonehenge is that, a 4,000-year-old message from a civilization that had no writing, but found another way to leave its mark on the world, a mark we can still touch. And so, as the stones of Stonehenge continue to stand on Salisbury Plain, bathed in moonlight, as they have for 4,000 years, you can rest tonight. Let your mind relax. Let your thoughts settle like the morning mist over the English plain. There is something comforting in knowing that there are things in this world that endure, that resist, that remain beyond everything we believe is permanent. The stones of Stonehenge have seen everything pass, and they will continue to see everything pass long after we are gone. That permanence, that silent eternity, is perhaps the greatest gift the builders of Stonehenge left us. The certainty that something always endures. Tonight, let that certainty accompany you as you sleep. Close your eyes, breathe deeply, and dream of circles of stone beneath the starry sky of England. Good night.